Journalists who expose abuses face arrest, while those who commit the abuses do so with impunity. Crimes allegedly committed by the authorities in Myanmar and the Philippines are currently being examined by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, yet so far it's only the reporters going to jail. Now you may think that these problems only affect people in far-off lands, but you would be wrong. These problems are global, and they exist even in countries that otherwise have a strong tradition of free speech. No region is untouched. For instance, many people don't know that journalists have been murdered because they are journalists, even in Europe, in places like Malta and Slovakia. Australia's Parliament just launched an inquiry into press freedom after police raided Sydney headquarters of the ABC News channel, alleging that classified material was used in a report on killings by Australian forces in Afghanistan. In this country, 2 journalists were recently arrested for using a leaked Ombudsman report in a documentary alleging police collusion in a murder in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. And the indictment against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has alarmed journalists at newspapers around the world, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the Guardian, because, as the editor of the Washington Post has put it, it, quote, criminalizes common practices in journalism that have long served the public interest. With many governments also insulting and threatening journalists and seeking to throttle media organizations through strict controls on ownership, licensing, and online activity, we have reached the point where there are few places in the world where journalists are not surveilled, harassed, disenfranchised, or subject to self-censorship. I should not need to explain to this audience why this is so consequential. In the last story that Amal Clooney wrote in the Washington Post, he lamented the fact that the vast majority of countries in the Arab world lack a free press, and that as a result, millions of Arabs are either uninformed or misinformed. This is true in other parts of the world as well, meaning democracy cannot work, meaning progress is restrained or thwarted, and human rights abuse, any abuse, can occur in the dark. So it is clear that the challenges to media freedom are urgent, and they are global. But an international campaign like the one being launched today can only bring about positive change if governments are willing to pay more than lip service to the ideal of media freedom. All governments say they support press freedom. The right is even enshrined in North Korea's constitution. What matters is enforcement of that right, and enforcement depends on states. So I am grateful to the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, and to Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland for bringing us all here today. I'm grateful for their assistance in cases where I have represented detained journalists. And I'm grateful that today they are shining a light on the importance of media freedom around the world. But my message to all the ministers who are here is that signing pledges and making speeches is not enough. They must make sure that their laws respect media freedom and that their police, prosecutors, judges, and citizens do the same. States must ensure that when a journalist is attacked, this crime is investigated and that those responsible are held to account. States should ensure that when a journalist is detained, they have access to legal counsel and open monitoring of their trial. States can provide more robust consular assistance when their nationals are arrested abroad for their reporting. They can provide special visas for persecuted journalists who need asylum, and they can impose targeted sanctions and other penalties on states that try to silence critical speech by detaining or killing journalists. States can make a concrete commitment today by contributing to the Global Media Defense Fund that has been established to help journalists access legal assistance and training. And I hope they will support the work of the new independent international legal panel that I will introduce tomorrow. Recent reports suggest that today, only 1 in 10 people in the world lives in a country with a free press. And today, the country of James Madison has a leader who vilifies the media, making honest journalists all over the world more vulnerable to abuse. With authoritarianism, isolationism, and nationalism gaining ground, the relevance of international institutions and respect for international norms are seriously in question. I believe it is this crisis of the international rule of law that makes this initiative compelling. It is compelling not because the international system works, but because it is broken. So we need groups of like-minded states that will move forward on one issue, even if they are paralyzed on others. That is why I am supporting this campaign, and I look forward to working with many of you to see what we can achieve. Thank you.